Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this, the Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. If you want to keep up with all things Clown Decade, do subscribe to the channel and of course become a channel member. Right, nice and easy one today because I had a busy weekend. Once again we're going through PoliticsJOE Vox Pops and I think it's good to see the juxtaposition between a failing left-wing party over at your party and how the membership's feeling there, and how the young members over at Reform are doing, given all the winning we keep enduring. So we'll start off with the video which PoliticsJOE decided to title asking your party members if they're okay, and check in and see how they're getting on.
We know the leadership has been contentious, like Zara and Jeremy have exchanged public spats, and I wondered, how do you feel about that?
It's depressing. It's quite depressing.
Oh, I can understand that from a your party point of view, but from the point of view of literally everyone else, it's Christmas come early almost. I mean, on one hand you want the left wing split, but even without your party it was still quite split between Greens and Labour, so we still might be okay.
I mean, there was a huge amount of excitement about building the new party. We want a different government, and it might not happen in the next general election, but there needs to be a voice for working people, for the working class.
Oh, that is coming next election. That's literally what Reform is. I mean, let's just throw it out here right now. This guy isn't working class. The other people we're going to go through will not be working class. I don't think I've actually seen a working class person at a Your Party Vox Pop. It's basically a load of middle class Londoners, and I'm not even joking about that.
For people that do not like racism, do not appreciate support for Trump's wars, that support Palestine.
Sorry, Trump's wars? What are you referring to there? Palestine and Israel was happening before Trump even got in. Russia and Ukraine was going on before Trump even got in. Both of them Trump is trying to end. It's just incredible how NPC some people can actually be.
You know, the votes for the MPs shows the level of support there is for Palestine against Israel's genocide.
In very, very, very particular areas, these particular areas, how do you put it, have unique demographics.
We need a voice for that, and we need a permanent voice. The fact that the Greens exist is great, but if Zach Palahniuk gets voted out next time, then you might get some more Greens like the ones before that aren't particularly great at actually building a movement.
Sorry, but I really think long-term Carla Denyer would have been better for the Greens than Zach Palahniuk is going to turn out to be. Zach Palahniuk spent last weekend being completely rattled because he basically showed himself to be a completely vibes-based politician. You know, when asked who are your favourite economists, and you say Grace Blakeley, Gary Stevenson and Richard Murphy, none of whom are actually economists, despite Gary Stevenson throwing out his economics degree, you know, by that logic I am a geologist, which I am not, then you're just clearly not a person actually interested in solutions, and he's basically just an attention seeker. Wow, he's a theatre kid? Who would have thunk?
We need this to happen, and it's depressing what's happened so far. I'm hoping that at this conference we will be able to agree some things that allow us to move forward. I would hope for, that we get a leader as well, that we can put it behind us.
Well, you had two, and Zora Sultana was so annoyed that everyone just wanted Corbyn that she pushed for a shared committee leadership. So you're getting a leader, but everyone in that committee is going to hate them, and it's going to cause more infighting. Well done, lefties.
I think it's unfortunate some of the things that have happened so far, with people being removed from the conference, with people being not allowed to attend. I think that is exactly the thing that's going to stop us from being able to move on. But I think I still have potential, because this is something that needs to happen, and there are literally millions of people that want this to happen, and I believe because of that it still can.
It's probably accurate saying millions of people want Corbyn to lead some sort of political movement. As much as Corbyn mania has really died down since the 2019 days, he is still a very popular politician, but he's also a popular politician who is viscerally hated by most of the country. Not really because he's effective, just because he is a swivel-eyed socialist loon. He is. He's not as bad as Zara Sultana, to be fair to him. He came across as downright centrist in the last video I covered on your party, and I suppose that's the advantage of having someone like Sultana on side. You look normal. He's not, and people still don't want absolutely everything nationalised, which apparently neither does Corbyn, but there's a lot of people who still also remember the 70s, I suppose I'll put it like that.
What we've been seeing from Labour in the past few years is that they've completely abandoned their socialist principles.
Yeah, and then they won an election by a landslide. Shocking. I know it was a weak landslide in terms of vote share, but still, a lot of people voted in 2019 and 2017 against Labour because nobody really wanted a Corbyn government. Well, not nobody, obviously, but most of the country didn't, is a better way to put that.
You know, their working class heritage, and they seem more interested in supporting big business and focusing on growing the economy at all costs compared to looking after everyday working people, you know.
Sorry, just, you think that this Labour government is trying to grow the economy? Are you kidding me? They're told constantly that they're going to sink it. And in fact, on top of that, guess what growing the economy does? Helps literally everyone. It's quite rare that there are any complete losers in a growing economy. Obviously, you're going to have competition and different businesses will grow and shrink. Some will boom and some will go bust. But there's always alternatives for these people. They can always find other jobs in a booming economy, which is ideal.
And of course, what's going on in the foreign policy as well, the state of Palestine, things like that. It just feels very much like the party's ideology is being completely hollowed out.
Well, yeah, but it's clear that they're trying to go more to Blairism than classic Labour. You know, if you want classic Labour, yeah, follow Corbyn. Oh, look, they're all infighting again. It's not like that wasn't the most predictable thing in the world.
And with this, we think it's a new opportunity to start a really radical socialist party. Jeremy Corbyn, you know, attracts a lot of people. Zara Sultana is bringing new people into the party.
Yeah, and that killed it on delivery. Like, that was really bad, as it turned out. It was a really bad decision. This had a bad omen all about it as soon as Zara Sultana announced that there was a new party with her and Jeremy in the works before anyone was ready. It's literally impossible to work with people like that.
It's a shame because there's clearly some individuals who see themselves as, you know, self-appointed leaders and decision makers for your party, and instead of focusing their attention on the rise of someone like Nigel Farage, on how we're going to fight this rotten Labour government, they're focusing their energy on other socialists on the ground.
Oh yeah, but I mean, this happens on the right as well, obviously, but people who would rather effectively force these splits, and especially when they have to realise they are on the losing side of this split, yeah, it's when it just gets to a point of, this is about ego, isn't it? And that's exactly the case with Zara Sultana. She'll be hyped up by everyone around her as effectively the socialist saviour of Britain, and she'll believe it. And as it turns out, no, she is literally just an incompetent woman.
And Zara called the expulsion of people like yourselves undemocratic. Have you heard anything from Zara or her team?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, it's great to see Zara being supportive and saying that the expulsions shouldn't happen. I think obviously that there is a lot of good feeling there. And I think that, you know, that's part of a vision that actually sees your party as going beyond the infighting and the bureaucracy and the things that actually to a lot of outsiders is incredibly disappointing and demoralising.
Sorry, but the complaint about this was the most normal thing for a party ever. If you are joining up as a party member, you cannot be a member of another political party. Simple as that. And typically what happens is the new party is okay with you because you join them, and the party you defected from, when they realise, they write you a letter saying you've been kicked out. This is the most normal thing in the world. What your party did, though, was the opposite, because ultimately people in the Socialist Workers' Party, they ain't leaving that. And well, as I say, it makes complete sense. I know all these socialist factions want to come together, but I think Jeremy Corbyn probably knows better than anyone that that's not how it works. You can't have these different factions then under the umbrella of this party and expect it to go anywhere properly. So they made the decision to kick them out, and there were protests about it. They got to vote in the policy votes anyway. And yeah, this woman's right. It just looks like a disaster. Whether you're in favour or against your party, it just looked like a joke.
And I think that the attention should be, and the focus of this weekend is still on actually how we're getting your party on the road. How are we going out from this? You know, deciding what kind of party your party could be. I think an insurgent left party that is going to excite lots of many people around the country.
Yeah, it has done. It's called the Green Party. They have been surging. That is happening. It's not it's not particularly happening with your party at this point. In fact, I think the steam's gone, and I don't think there's any recovering from that, I'm afraid.
You know, it's fair to say that the process in the development of your party so far has not been particularly simple.
That's a very diplomatic word for what is an utter disaster that has put absolutely everyone off. There's no one excited here. Everyone's basically just saying, yeah, they should have done better. But as is always noticeable with me when it comes to socialists talking about that, it's never any detail. It's just, yeah, we need to get organised better. What does that mean exactly? Oh, don't have infighting. Well, best way to do that is all join your party and not join any other faction. Oh, can't do that. I disagree with 1% of things that they're going for. Great.
And a big part of the frustration around that, I think, for a lot of people is that so much of that is happening behind closed doors. Like, there's not the openness that we would expect from what's been going on.
Right. Firstly, no, this split was not behind closed doors. Zohra Sultan has been very, very open about the splits. Secondly, you want to keep these splits behind closed doors, otherwise it can turn into disasters like this. I remember when Rupert Lowe was kicked out of Reform, and I thought, well, this is a disaster. We're going to lose all the momentum, and it's going to be some work to get it back. Turns out I was actually wrong about that, but this is exactly the type of thing that's happened over at your party I was worried about. Luckily, as it turned out, barely anyone really knew who Rupert was. That's still somewhat true now, by the way, as much as everyone tries to throw out those polls of about 60 people in Great Yarmouth. And obviously everyone knows who Nigel Farage is, and everyone knows that he is, at the moment, the lightning rod for the right. And, of course, there still are disagreements within the right. It's just basically every normal right-winger is backing Reform at this point. You have some people still in the Tory party, but I know for a fact that a few of them are going to be defecting soon. I'm talking about people I know rather than, any particular politician or anyone of note. And then, as we saw with Ben Habib's announcement livestream about officially being a political party, first question you get, I want to make a statement about the Jews and the Talmud. And naturally, to be fair, she did get booed by the audience for that, but there is a habit of alternative right-wing movements getting all the cranks, and that is what's going to happen when you say, yes, we're totally for free speech, you can say what you want. You get cranky people who, because they're so convinced that they are correct, want to speak truth to power like that, and that's all they really focus on. It's all a bit mad.
And so even with the disagreements that have been occurring, it's not entirely clear where, Jeremy or Zara or people, where they're standing with that.
Yeah, and imagine they'd want to keep it that way so that people don't start planting their flags on the actual disagreements that they have. It's a tactic to try and not split the party.
Quite desperately, the working class needs a new party to represent our interests. We're living through a cost of living crisis, housing crisis, all these issues. Everybody's suffering, and we need a solution.
Yeah, again, for people who are only listening to this, this woman and the guy before both have dyed their hair non-natural colours, very neon, we'll say. Which it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's not exactly massively expensive. It's not something I would expect someone struggling to pay for bills, food, and all that to be spending their money on, i.e. someone who is working class, which is what these people mean. And again, it's something that's just, it's such a funny irony of all these socialist movements. They're all filled to the brim with middle-class lovies who don't really know what struggling financially means. Usually if they're young, it's because they're getting a lot of help from their parents. At least that's anecdotes I have in my own experience. With other people, I've never been a socialist. But they will still say we, as in I am working class along with other people. And personally, I don't see it. It's entirely possible some of these people are working class. It's just from the experience I have of the working class myself, and certainly with people who struggle, they don't tend to act in the way I'd expect.
The student loan system is frankly ridiculous. Why should we be leaving uni with tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt just to get an education?
Oh, honestly, my opinions on student loan, it's going to lead up to me having a total crash out on a video about it, because everyone who is under 30 and terminally online, and obviously over at your party, as it turns out, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot. Student loans are the most student-sided loans that you could ask for. I won't go into detail on it here, but basically, long story short on my opinion is, you're complaining about a debt you technically never have to pay off. There are people who are saying, oh, I've worked it out, and if I'm the average worker, I'll still be left with £1 million worth of debt from my student loans because of the stupid interest rates. What they never say is that at the point they're calculating it, it's already written off by then. Because it's written off on Plan 2 after 25 years. I think on Plan 4 it's 30 or 35 years, I can't remember. Either way, you're 50 to 60 years old when it gets written off. And you only have to pay it if you're making enough money. And I say this every time, I'm on medium wage pretty much. I'm only paying off about £20 a month. It's really not that bad, and people start complaining when it's like, oh, I know people on 70 grand a month and they're earning £300 less than their peers on that money because they got a student loan. Yeah, they signed it. Boo-hoo. Like, they're still taking home over £4 a month. Sorry for not being properly compassionate about that, I suppose. Again, I'm not a socialist, but what I am is a man who supports contract law. You signed a contract with student loans, you were told in detail about it, you're told everything about it. I don't know why people try and say that they were lied to about it. You're not. You're told everything about it. I was told about it on every open day. I had a call from student loan, I remember it, where they went through the details of it, and you sign at the end, because let's face it, people want to go to uni and get free money, because with maintenance grants and the loan and all that, you do get money. At this point, to be honest, it's probably not enough. I'm with Camillo on that. And you will have to get part-time jobs. There are people I knew who had to get part-time jobs anyway. But I've gone into this way more than I wanted to. Point being, this is a very America-brained issue. Oh, look at all this debt I have. Yeah, stop ignoring that it gets written off, please. That's really annoying me.
To not even have a secure job at the end of it, necessarily.
Oh, no, pretty much necessarily. What, we had like 1 million graduates last year, all fighting for about 17,000 grad schemes. Thanks, Labour, for ruining the economy. Yeah, it sucks. I completely agree. I did not have an easy time finding a grad scheme after uni. In fact, it took 2 years of work experience before I got anywhere close to a grad scheme. And that was work experience, unpaid, part-time, learning to code.
There's so many rising rents for, frankly, not very good homes, for cheap, falling apart, mouldy homes that we're being ripped off.
Certainly in London you're being ripped off, and other big cities. Yeah, we have a housing crisis. 2 rather large reasons for that. 1, immigration, obviously. 2, not building enough homes. 3, ironically, is very low interest rates. But yeah, the interest rates and immigration, I think, are the 2 things that need sorting. Guess what the 2 things basically nobody in that room over at your party is going to be talking about? To be fair, they might talk about interest rates, but I would imagine it would be in a very anti-interest rate way, as in nobody should be able to borrow any money and have to pay back interest. Because I guess they hate growth.
Food prices, going up, just the cost of living in general it's horrific. People are...
Yeah, a big part of that is our loony green energy policy, net zero and all that. Your party are probably massively in favour of that, but they'll just say, oh, it's actually the billionaires scraping a load of profit that's making you poor, despite the fact that 75% of that is taxed.
People having to, cut back on social time, nights out, cut back on even just not putting the heating on. A lot of people I know still, it's end of November, haven't put the heating on yet because they can't afford it.
Yep, we end up putting on jumpers and all that. To be fair, I'm not as stingy with the with the old energy as I was when we first moved in. Trying to min-max all that just got quite boring. We end up spending an extra tenner a month. I can easily claw that back from elsewhere if I really need to. But no, it's a real thing. People are making the choices between not having the heating on and eating. It is happening. And it would be great if we could just frack and make energy as cheap as possible, but no, can't do that. Everything needs to be windmills.
I think there's so much anger in society at the billionaires, at the pro-capitalist politicians, the rise of the reform and the far right.
Can you please name me some of these pro-capitalist politicians, and I will happily vote for them. And if you just say Farage, great, already doing it. Also, I'm really not seeing this whole people are getting angry at the billionaires. Literally, when all these taxes came out, a thing that I've even heard from normies is, oh, the millionaires and billionaires are going to go away. Not in a vindictive sense, but in a, yeah, I get it sense. This whole people hate billionaires thing, it's made up by leftists. People really don't care that there are people richer than them in general. It's when they do scummy things or just downright illegal things that really gets them.
And there's a real need for an alternative, working class politics to be put forward. So I think it's a real opportunity, that we can put a clear anti-capitalist alternative out there.
Damn, you're going to go nuts when you realise what the Tories actually did. I asked Grok once how much of Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto did the Tories actually implement after they won in 2019. It was like 20% of it, which, bear in mind how socialist Corbyn is, that's quite a lot. And the stuff they didn't do, it was partial implementation of the Labour manifesto. It's not good. Certainly not pro-capitalist. Our free market index has steadily gone down over the past decade or so. The Tories absolutely were not pro-capitalist as much as they tried to say they were.
Yeah, I think in reality a lot of the discussion was curtailed in an undemocratic way by the agenda and so on, which is very frustrating. A lot of socialists from the north of Ireland came over because we wanted to put forward the idea of being able to organise in the north of Ireland, a working class socialist party.
Cool and everything, but it is an odd tidbit about British politics that Northern Ireland's kind of forgotten by Great Britain, Scotland, Wales and England, that is, because they really do sort of have their own problems, and none of the major parties even really bother to try and have any presence there because they've got their own equivalents, really. Tories have the DUP, Reform have the TUV, I guess Labour has Sinn Féin, and it's only really Ben Habib who's trying to bridge that gap, but I can't see it making much headway.
Northern Ireland is dominated by sectarian politics, by pro-capitalist, pro-big business, pro-landlord political parties on either side of the sectarian divide.
Yeah, that's just normal people. Socialism is actually, it is quite small in terms of the movement. A lot of people who voted Jeremy Corbyn were basically doing it either to stop Brexit or because they absolutely hated the Tories for austerity. It's not really a pro-Corbyn platform, the 2017-2019 elections, and, well, if anything, your party's proving that.
Some of your party's first MPs were landlords. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous, I think we're building a working class socialist a party here. Landlords shouldn't play a part in that, Fundamentally, we need to be a party that stands for tenants, and tenants' rights are fundamentally opposed to the rights of landlords who they make money from hoarding the property and the wealth in our society,
I've complained about landlords enough against your party, Vox Pops, but it does beg the question, what did anyone expect? Your party technically had the highest proportion of landlords of any party, and yet they were supposed to be explicitly anti-landlord. It's just hilarious.
I think as well, there's been transphobia from some of the MPs, and that's absolutely, that should be a red line, Trans people, along with migrants and refugees, are the groups that are most attacked by the capitalist press today, by the far right,
My God, wait till you see what they do to the gays in Gaza. I mean, seriously, it should have been the most predictable thing in the world. You've got a load of people coming together who don't really understand why they are pro-Gaza, aside from the people who are obviously anti-Semitic. And yeah, what's been the result? Oh, a couple of those MPs leave because it turns out most of the people who are supporting your party are absolutely mad and don't actually like you. And then all those loony lefties ask the obvious question of why were they allowed in the first place? Despite the fact they all supported them coming together in the first place, because we've got to organise.
And it's absolutely imperative that working class and socialist organisations make clear that we stand against the oppression of trans people, against the oppression of migrants and refugees. We have to absolutely stand for the rights of those people,
Yeah, I'm not being funny, but when I have been leafleting for reform in working class areas, you'll be unfortunately completely disillusioned by what working class people think on those subjects. But anyway, that's all we have of your party for the moment. So let's move on to the young sensitive men over at Reform.
People turning me into a meme of sorts, comparing me to Gabriele D'Annunzio, the proto-fascist dictator of Italy.
Oh, wouldn't have started with that, mate. Bit on the nose for a Reform member, I will say that.
Dr. Ivo Robotnik from Sonic.
Yeah, gotta be honest with you, would have opened with that.
Renowned criminal Charles Bronson, Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, Benito Mussolini, the entire lot.
I get you're doing a bit, but you're talking to politics, Joe. They're obviously going to try and misconstrue you, but there we go.
I'm not actually originally from it. I'm from the country of Portugal. And now that I'm able to make contributions politically to this country, I feel obliged to uplift this nation.
Based and red-pilled, there is a reason that Britain and Portugal have the longest lasting alliance in history. In fact, saying Britain is a little bit of a misnomer. It actually comes from the Treaty of Windsor, so it was England, from 1373. Literally 650 years. Shakes hand, welcome to England, my son. Let's go take our country back.
I do think reform is the right place to go to give back and to help with what this country has given me.
And I completely agree as a man who is born and bred here.
Young voters are leaving the Labour Party.
If we're not feeling like we're heard, we should move to different parties.
They're not making my future any better. Which party is going to do that? It's not going to be the Conservatives.
Correct, it is Reform. You should join Reform. I do mean this, by the way. Pretty much every branch meeting I go to, I am the youngest there. I am. And I'm nearly 30. And what an awful lot of the 50, 60, 70-year-olds who do turn up there are saying is, how do we get the young uns involved? And I think you've got to realise, if you're a young person and you go there, you will have your beers paid for you. You will likely be asked, will you want to represent us? You're basically given a free ride, as long as you're not a total weirdo. Being one of the... someone everyone recognises, certainly at first, because I bring the average age down by about 20 years. And they will basically be asking you, what are your aspirations? Do you want to be a councillor, member of the Senate in my case, MP? You will almost definitely be asked about that. They are gagging for young people, and I can almost guarantee, because of that, you will get a fair few benefits and be quite popular. Obviously, that's going to put people off who just want to quietly go there and leaflet. You can go there and quietly leaflet, I've seen it before.
It's not going to be Labour, and they're having to pick between pretty much Reform or the Green Party.
Your party doesn't even get a mention, get wrecked.
Labour at the moment haven't really been trying to appeal to younger voters. I always feel like everything I read, it's about the triple lock.
Young people are generally in favour of the triple lock because they want their grandparents to have a comfortable retirement, I think is the best way to put it. And the problem is that young people, we're not lazy, and they're not lazy. I've been through enough now to know that's not the problem. The problem is you're basically disincentivised to work. You have a load of influencers who go on about what they can get by not working, let's say, and those that are really aspirational, they will be thinking of how can I save up to leave the country. And I know people who have done that. And then there are people who are, and this is a perfectly legitimate job because I've done it before, stacking shelves in Tesco, who basically, why not just do that for 40 hours a week? Sure, it cuts into your weekend a bit. But then if you move to another job, you're doing more high-stress work, you have more responsibility, and you don't really get compensated for it. You end up only getting about an extra £1 an hour. If that, it's not worth it. And then on top of that, you've got the grad scheme issue where, 1 million people graduated last year? 17,000 grad jobs. We are going to have a youth unemployment crisis. No wonder people are going on benefits. Plenty of people actually don't have a choice. How do you fix it? Fix the economy. And obviously get the fraudsters off.
And Reform is picking up some of those votes. Earlier this year, I went to Lancaster University to speak to Jack Eccles, who'd started a Reform Society on campus.
Yeah, I've already done a reacting to Extreme Britain on that particular one, so we'll skip this.
Since then, Nigel Farage has appointed him president of the party's newly launched official student branch, Students for Reform.
Just throwing it out there, potentially terrible idea. We never really wanted a youth wing, because all youth wings do in Tories and Labour is a whole bunch of infighting, and the same was true of UKIP. I know the UKIP one from first-hand experience, I'm afraid to say. And realistically, if you're part of a party, you should be part of the whole thing. If this works a bit like the Women in Reform do, where it's just there to try and promote women joining Reform, fine. If this is just to encourage students to join Reform, totally fine. And honestly, with Matt Goodwin at the helm, I think it will be under good supervision. But if it becomes its own section with special interest for students, no. If I start hearing ridiculous things about the student loan, I'm not going to be happy.
But it was Durham University that had the first Reform UK Student Society, and its leader is now the Vice President of Students for Reform.
Well, good for him, and also, once again, it shows we're totally fine with immigrants who integrate and would like to be considered British, assuming he wants to be considered British. I don't see why he wouldn't. I highly doubt he's going to start a special interest group within Reform for Portuguese people, but there we go.
Tell me what the reaction is like.
After Students for Reform launched.
Well, the reaction over Twitter was a mixed and varied one. Rather funnily enough, even some people turning me into a meme of sorts.
I mean, yeah, it's always going to be mixed on Twitter, isn't it? You've got loads of people on the left and right there, and a lot of Reform supporters, and the Reform supporters are generally on side with him. But yeah, we've heard all about the meme, so let's get to a different question.
The entire lot of very unpleasant and incredibly evil people did some very, very horrible genocides during the Second World War. It's rather disappointing to see such people do something like that, especially when they have really got no clue who I am, what I do, or who I believe in.
Yeah, I can understand that. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of Twitter for you. You are going to have people call you these names, and yeah, you are going to be disappointed, but I hope that you have thick enough skin to step over these banshees on Twitter. Right, the next clip's audio is completely bunk, so I'll read out the subtitles for you. General enthusiasm in terms of conversations, I'd say I have been more positive over the year, as there's been less people coming to harass me. Last year, when I did one of our early advertisement events, we had people throwing some cups, trash, wrappers, McDonald's, Coca-Cola actually. It wasn't a milkshake, unfortunately. Nigel is the only one people have thrown milkshake over. I mean, to be honest with you, this is good. This is good that reform are being normalised to the point where students don't really feel the need to throw rubbish at people who are supporting reform as students. I mean, honestly, a year ago, I remember going through PoliticsJOE covering students talking about reform, and to be honest, I think they're cracking it. I think they're going to be cracking the younger, not just votes, but activists too over the coming months, and hopefully get a decent young cohort, which I think they're getting. It's just going to take a while. The significance of a student branch is quite important. Students are the next generation, obviously, of workers, which is a growing, expanding party will require. This is a great way to make Reform UK accessible from early on, meaning that they can grasp all the ideas. Yeah, and again, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's when it becomes a formalised special interest wing that it's going to have issues. But if it's basically just a social club for it, fine. Have your women's part of it, have your men's part of it, but don't allow them to start having official policy debates and things like that. That has to be the branch or the party as a whole. Because there's definitely some advantages to effectively having student groups for this. It's just when it becomes too official and too special interest, because people will take advantage. Anyway, do you like the immigration policy and controlling immigration as being quite fundamental to helping young people, like we said, to get out of the cost of living crisis and, of course, get on the housing ladder? Do you see these two things as being quite intimately linked? Asked the interviewer. I see the personal effect, as there is something one of my friends said to me, that living down in Birmingham he experienced. It would be helpful to him and people around him if that when they need to be on the housing ladder, someone who had crossed the channel a couple of days ago isn't prioritised for a house. I mean, again, perfectly fair and reasonable, and it's, again, good to see that people of students' age are getting it. Anyway, back to the good audio.
It's not Reform, though, but the Greens that have been the biggest beneficiary of Labour's defectors. Since the installation of Zach Polanski as the new leader, their support has surpassed Labour's amongst 18 to 24-year-olds in some polls.
Yeah, I really don't want to jinx anything, but it really seems like it's a flash in the pan. He's got about 3 things he can say over and over and over again. It's going to get very boring very quickly, and I think the mainstream are just going to stop bothering to even put him on. Or they will do because they want Labour to move left, who knows. But having said all that, at least Corbyn, even Corbyn, had some substance to what he says. Zach Polanski is just repeating the most basic YouTube talking points I've gone over on this channel for years. He's screwed.
Here in Durham, this has led to the relaunch of a Green Party student society.
I did say a while ago, it could easily be that it's Reform versus Green next election. I think the difference is going to be, part of it could actually be how the student wing's brought in. If the Greens listen to them too much, they're screwed. And if Reform don't listen to theirs enough, they could also be screwed and all the students go over to the Greens. It's a tough balancing act. And it's part of the reason why having a student wing in the first place could have been a mistake.
As of right now, we are the second biggest political society on campus.
Well, yeah, I'm not being funny, you would be. The Greens are very much they're pretty much a boomer and student party. That's what the Greens are, and both of those sides will not be agreeing on things, I can guarantee that.
albeit tactically. I voted Labour at the last election, and I thought they were going to hopefully make some positive change, even if it wasn't all the way I wanted.
You'll have the same thing with Green if they ever get in. They're not very good. They don't have any ideas beyond take the worst parts of the economy and system we have now and accelerate them.
And then they've just turned around and done none of what they promised to do, and have just made everyone's lives worse. They haven't brought about the change they promised.
I mean, going through the manifestos, was there much change? They didn't even promise the two-child benefit cap to be lifted, and it has been. In fact, you constantly get this on Twitter. There's loads of Labour activists who basically have this little graphic saying, oh, here were Labour's promises and here's what they've delivered. And actually, they've delivered quite a lot of what they promised, to which my point is, well, Labour delivered what they promised and it sucks. Can't believe it. That means Rishi Sunak was right. Anyway, it goes on to the choice of students when it comes to politics.
They're having to pick between pretty much Reform or the Green Party, and they realise the Green Party is the one giving them hope about the future, and I think that's why they're choosing us.
I mean, let's be real, it's the vibes as well. There is a vibe with still quite a few normies that Reform is the racist party, which they are slowly but surely eroding away. But I hate to say it, that there is a stereotype that sticks with students because, frankly, there's so many of them that act like this, where they just have vibes-based politics. Oh, Greens are against racism, transphobia and the rich, therefore I want to go along with them. Okay, look into detail. What are the ideas? Oh, wealth tax. Right. Where have they tried that? Pretty much everywhere. Right, it always sucks. And where they do it and it doesn't suck, it's because they do things like get rid of inheritance tax. But that ain't what the Greens are doing, and obviously it just makes students go along with it, and, well, hopefully we can get an idea of what their policy ideals are, because we know what Hales is, Xavier Hales, the reform guy. Basic reform, less immigration, no illegals, no criminals, let the aspiring entrepreneurial class grow and flourish. That would be quite nice, actually.
Starmer stepped in, went, things are going to get worse, and we don't actually really have too much of an idea what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much obvious to everyone who paid attention last election, to be honest with you. Again, I called it. Literally 5 days into this government, they will not last till the end of it. With any luck, it will be 2027 by the next election. And now we've even got mainstream political commentators saying that, so there we go.
Zach Polanski's sort of image and the way he presents himself, you can tell he's definitely a man of the people.
Yeah, perfect example right there. Total vibes. Oh, I just like Zach Polanski. And then it's just trying to rationalise that. Why do I like him? Man of the people. Yeah, sorry, but a theatre kid turned politician is not a common representation of the working people. And, you know, you can say exactly the same thing about Farage, sure, but at least with Farage you actually have plenty, and I mean plenty of footage of him actually mingling with the working man, and lots of them actually... Let's put it another way. I went to Llandudno, to the Welsh rally that he was holding there the other week now. Great vibes, great energy, saw quite a few people from my branch there, and even when I've been leafleting with them, you know, not many of them know that I come from a footballer's wives town originally. Posh for Manchester at least, Porsches on a few driveways, things like that. I've never hidden the fact that I grew up quite well. But then when going through areas and leafleting, pretty much everyone I've leafleted with has made comments on areas like that, of like, oh, they're all posh around here, it's great. And I basically have to tell them, yeah, this isn't too different to where I grew up, to be honest. So, you know, there is actually worth going round here because people like them will vote. And same with Llandudno, full of working class people, from what I could see anyway. People who'd even either taken half a day off just to get there, or were rushing there, and hence they started about 40 minutes late, because, you know, you have to drive to Llandudno. North Wales, one doesn't have great public transport, let's be fair. Everyone has to drive, and it's all sparsely populated, and people still made the effort to come after work to it. I did it as well, but I work from home, so that's quite easy. I have never seen remotely anything like that with Zach Polanski, because, as is typical with the left, these people like the idea of the working class, but they rarely actually mingle with them. Anyway, they move on to talking about your party and Jeremy Corbyn.
I'm still somewhat interested in what they're doing, to be honest, but I think that their biggest issue is, in my opinion, it's just become too many egos in one place.
Oh, that's definitely true. I covered that last week. As the Green Party grows, though, I don't see why the same thing won't happen. There will be people in the Green Party thinking, oh, Zach's done well, but I could be even better. And guess what? There's a leadership election. I think it's next year. Yeah, they have it every 2 years. So you could see out of the hundreds of thousands who've joined, people who get an ego.
I think what would have been the sensible thing for Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana to do would have been to join the Green Party.
Yes, but that involves putting their ego aside, and let's be fair, if they did join the Green Party, you'd have the exact same ego problem, which you are going to run into. We've already had it in Reform, and people get the idea now. No point doing that. Farage will win every time. Polanski's not been in the role that long, and once the honeymoon period's over, it's going to be open season. I've seen it happen plenty of times.
Is there anything Keir Starmer could do that would win your vote back to Labour at this point?
Ending the funding to Israel. I think that is the main thing that I'm sort of like... I originally saw him as sort of this commandeering of the left-wing party.
Do you see what I mean? There's so many students that just fall into this category of vibes, and that's all I care about, vibes. What's the main thing that will get you back to the Labour Party? Oh, you know that thing going over across Europe? Yeah, it's everywhere, sure, but is that the most pressing issue for British people at this point? I don't think so.
But when I think about it now, I just think he's sort of right-wing in disguise.
What are you basing that on? Literally the most spending and highest tax burden ever. Yeah, he's just right-wing. What are you talking about?
And it's become so much more right-wing than I would have wanted. So I think just sort of almost returning to the roots of the Labour Party.
The massive difference between people who say this and New Labour is that New Labour understand if you go back to the roots, you end up with Thatcher again. You just will. To be clear, Starmer doesn't understand any of this, and all Starmer ever wanted to do was be Attorney General. He has basically fallen into the role of Prime Minister because, let's face it, who else in Labour could actually do it? No one. And this is the worst part. If Starmer goes, it's going to get way worse. These people will be very happy. But this is one of the few times where we have to be thankful of the civil service, because at the moment the civil service is probably what's stopping Labour from going way too far left.
What the Labour Party was in sort of the early 2000s, returning to that sort of image could persuade me.
Just giving it away again. Giving it away. Nothing about policy, just the image. That's all she has talked about. What are you voting on? Just the image of things. Incredible. And it's the Blairite image. You got to understand, this is the late Blairite image. You can't go back after the Blairite image has been well and truly stomped.
Honestly, I think the best thing he can do is resign. I don't think anyone trusts him anymore.
Well, on that we can agree. Unfortunately, I'd want Wedge Streeting in because he's the least worst, and I am almost certain that these people will want Angela Rayner. Anyway, that is the end of the video. So, shill time. Guaranteed this week our gaming stream on Wednesday, 9 PM, Deus Ex Human Revolution, do come along to that. Friday, Wolves of Westminster, Down the Pub podcast, that will be out. I'm also floating the idea of possibly doing an extra gaming stream on Tuesday because I missed last week because I was at a Reform branch meeting, and Saturday I'm probably doing Laughing at the Guardian, but we'll see if I can get guests. If you enjoy what I do, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment on top of that. Do become a channel member, leave super chats and super thanks. Right, that's it everyone. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.